I use that in education back at home, and you know, there's so many skills that Magic taps into. Now, never mind the social and the psychological skills, but you know, the math is just incredible going on under all these decisions.
Yep, we've got a complex play here. Mario went ahead and blocked the Changeling hero with his Sunflare Shaman, and then activated it prior to combat damage to hit the Streambed Aquatex. It's a good play because what that will wind up doing is getting the Sunflare Shaman dead so that their life gain will not happen from the Changeling hero, but he didn't sacrifice the Sunflare Shaman to his Path Blazer, so he may not have seen that portion of the play.
Right, and milled away there was Makeshift Mannequin.
Yep, Ming checked the graveyard to see how many elemental cards were in before milling, just to make sure he couldn't save it by pumping and inadvertently making the Sunflare Shaman bigger. But, yep, Makeshift Mannequin no longer a factor in this match.
Also, a case of where the Makeshift Mannequin, if it had happened to go to hand while Ming is busy milling away, you're just giving Pascaline more and more options for the Makeshift Mannequin.
Yep. Get a big Axe Grinder Giant would have been a big spell there, but Ming had the counter spell. His opponent needs to pay for
and dowsing.
Does have a wizard, so Ming will also be drawing a card.
Yeah, that's very nice.
Still has the Merfolk. He'll also be milling a card. Things are firmly in the Chinese player's control right now.
You got to feel irritated when you have 8 land in play and you find that essentially you got mana leaked.
Yeah. Yep.
You know, that's just not good, is it? All right. Card draw for Ming. Pascaline, yeah, he's really not looking in good shape.
Ming used his Aquatex well to turn the Goblin land into an island, in addition to its regular types, so it's now a triple duel. He was able to get in earlier with his Changeling hero because he had the Streambed Aquatex in play. The Seething Path Blazer able to become as much as a 4/2 first striker with sacrificing the Fester creep. That forces him to consider keeping the Changeling hero at home because he could now lose it to the Fester creep. Cloak and Dagger may play a role in whether or not he's going to get in. He can now equip, say, the Drowner Secrets or the Aether Snipe and be able to get in with 3 relevant attackers. I don't think we'll see him getting in with Drowner Secrets anytime soon, though.
Well, I guess he's hoping not to need to. In a way, the Drown of Secrets has become his secondary win condition.
Yep. And if the Changeling hero's got to stay home as a Merfolk, it'll go right on duty milling.
There you see that nervousness. I'll just twist my card around and around and around, and then he stops.
Yep.
Yeah.
Ming really loves the game. Says he plays it a lot. In fact, he came up with a alternative form of playing. I didn't get quite all the rules, but it's called Two-Headed Dragon instead of Two-Headed Giant. Came up with it a couple years ago with his friends. Players sit in a 4 players sit across from each other at a table. The person across from you is your partner, and you play a team game.
Oh, sort of like bridge in a way.
Yeah, yeah.
That kind of playing opposite as your partner.
Yep.
Right, so Path Blazer is all that's left. Ethereal Whiskergill comes down. It gets equipped with Cloak and Dagger, +2/+0, and Shroud. Can't be targeted now, so no lash out on that right now.
Ming did take the opportunity to get in to get his Mirror Entity out of the way, actually, so that he could get the Whiskergill down. Now that his opponent has that island, the Aquatex well, takes the opportunity to get the Cloak and Dagger suited up on the 4/3. Now got a 6/3 attacker that can get through with that island and can't be the target of spells or effects. That's rough for Pascaline. He goes ahead and packs it in.
He says, "No, I'm done there," which makes it 2-1 to Pascaline. All right, there's no doubt that if Ming is going to win this, it is going to take some time because he really doesn't have the capacity to blister his way through. Will John Finkel have a significant view about which of these two he faces in the final, do you suppose?
I think so, Rich. I think when you're looking at Mario Pascoli's deck, seeing all that removal, I think it has the best shot of beating John, although Mario's creatures are a little bit weak, as we see the Italian player a little upset there with how that match went. His opponent, Ming Shi, on the other hand, has the blue-white deck that really doesn't do enough to put John into much concern for losing. It doesn't have the early drops that can really get in the way. It doesn't have the type of removal and global wrath effects that you might expect needing in order to try to hold on. The Chandra Nalar and all the spot removal, on the other hand, really helpful for the black-red player. So he's hoping to get through here and possibly have a shot at that final.
Well, of course, on Super Sunday we always focus on the top 8, but I know a lot of you are tuning in for the first time in the weekend. Where have you been, you naughty people? And want to know what's been going on in the rest of the field. So while they're shuffling up for the next game, we're going to talk a little bit about some of the players further down the standings, the weekends that they had. So below the top 8, the guy in 9th, always the hardest place to be, but at least this time it was a clear point difference, 33 to 34. Matthias Kettel of Sweden, Martin Juser of the Czech Republic was 10th, and your guy Brandon Scheel was 11th and 12th. Steve Sadin, as we've said, planning to come to the European GP circuit. Chris Green was 13th. Fabian Demazo, he was basically put out by Mike Rohn in the penultimate round.
Yep.
And then Manuel Bucher, part of the World Team Champions, 16th, one of the beaten finalists from that match in New York, Thomas Preyer. And then we're into 17 to 24. Now they all get 7 pro points. And the way 6 pro points rather, and this is Matej Zatlkaj from Slovakia, 17th. Jan Masikar and Rafael Levy, they both had draws early in the tournament, and we were talking on the tournament centre, Bill, how great it could be for them as long as they kept winning. Eventually they couldn't quite manage it, and Brandon Scheel was the guy who had Rigid, Hero of Kinsbell, Cast Pestamite, Untapped Rigid, Tap It Again, and that was the end of Rafael Levy's weekend.
Yep. Scheel's a really solid player. He's one of those guys who's always at the Pro Tour, sort of like Dave Price was many years before he got his big break, the king of beatdown, or the king of PTQs they called him, and just kept having to go back and PTQ and always like a machine made it. This weekend he had a big finish, finally got the 11th place he wanted, and did take some big names down in the process, including Rafael Levy.
All right, so at 20th we've got Chang Chua and Daniel Grafensteiner, 21st. Shu Kimura was 22nd, and then Paul Chion, 23rd.
Yeah, interesting thing with Paul, he started out pretty well and then had a rough day too. But the really interesting thing is Shu Kimura. He is the top finishing Japanese player at this Pro Tour, and all the way down in 22nd.
Wow. Okay.
It's been a long time since we've seen a Japanese player, since that's where the spot where we saw the highest Japanese player, especially considering there are 2 Americans in the top 8, which we haven't seen a lot of over the past couple seasons.
That is extremely surprising indeed. So Chion at 23, Taylor Webb 24. The second Japanese guy is Fumiki Nakano in 25th. Mark Konkel, we now know a little bit more about in 26th. Andre Mueller, very anonymous weekend, but just quietly went 27th. And having been second at Valencia, 2 out of 3, quite, pretty decent, very decent money finish, obviously, in Valencia. But back again amongst the money, just picking up the dollars, which is great. Masai Kitayama, 28, and Shingo Kurihara. I got an email from a friend out in Japan, or has been out in Japan, Eli Kaplan, saying, no, you've done it again, Rich, you're mispronouncing the guy. It's spelled Shingu, but apparently Shingo Kurihara is what I need to say. So there we are. Hope we've got that right now. Steve Locke at 30th, Nico Boni, another world champ there, and 32nd was Daniel Peachnik. Well, we'll dip into some of the lower standings, let you know how some of your favourite pros got on as we get the chance. But we are back with our game. It is underway in Game 4. And Ming's kicked off with a deep tread Mero. Pascali, as yet, nothing on board.
One thing to notice about that top 32, there was one disqualification of a player who was in contention for top 8. Jürgen Hahn was disqualified in the very last round. So those who were wondering about where his name went, that was what was happening there.
Right.
Deep Tread Mero is the early lead from Ming, as you pointed out, and plays into his Game B plan, which is get his opponent on island somehow and beat down with creatures that otherwise couldn't or can get island walk. So it looks like that's what he's going to stick out doing, while Pascoli needs to find an answer to that too, and eventually, or he'll wind up suffering a pretty embarrassing fate here in Game 4.
And again, you see Pascoli there. Doesn't look happy at all. I wonder, have we seen any of them look happy, whether they've won or lost or just been playing?
They're all pretty serious. I don't know. You'd have to ask Mario's girlfriend Eliza, who's at home in Italy watching, whether he's always that gruff. But I got to imagine he's just a little frustrated about how the last game went.
Yeah, well, I've also got to say hello to your girlfriend, Bill, who posted on the forums and said she'd swap with me anytime for a week in Kuala Lumpur with Bill Stark.
Over Valentine's Day.
Oh, dear.
Thundercloud Shaman, real strong play there, gets met with the counterspell.
Yep.
We get a cloak and dagger. With,
An interesting thought from Scott down on the floor is that Pascaline could be doing a bit of a class act